Thank you. Very kind. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So what a brilliant original, unlike anything before, motion picture. Alejandro embraces, I think, the totality of life, nature, experience, and and sculpts a brilliant piece of work. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. It's kind of neorealism in the wilderness. It's,
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And just to jump right into it, Leo and Tom Hardy, an extraordinary human life. He personifies this extraordinary Leo, particularly personifying this extraordinary human life force. When you were working with them, how did you prepare them? Because they both seem to have that kind of immersion into that. Into the time and the place and the conditions, that quasi, kind of imagined state that an actor can maintain week after week after week, whether he's on a set or not on the set. Mm-hmm. And it just seems to, just kind of they've been immersed in that state of mind. Was that the case, or how'd you go about all that?
I would say that, first of all, good night, everybody, and thank you for being here tonight. I have just finished the film last week, and I can't believe that I finished and I survived. So just to watch, like, oh my God, I'm done. Basically, I think it was a very interesting process that, in a way, I stole a little bit from what I learned in Birdman, which is a combination, 3 elements in this case. I will say first was the fact that I was able, I started scouting location this film 5 years ago. So in a way, I have a picture of the tone or the atmosphere of the film, and I knew that the locations and those landscapes will be a very particular character in the film because they will dictate the emotional state and the narrative of the film. So we have the luxury of having been in the locations for months before with the actors, which I required them to come early, much before the shooting start. So with Leo and with Tom and many of the other characters, Will Poulter or Domhnall, we rehearse every scene, even when there was no still locations. We have these kind of storage offices that we rented outside Calgary. And with masking tapes, we kind of designed the fort and how the rooms will be. So every single shot was designed. And I will say, when Captain Henry arrived to the fort, or at the end, Bridger come and he hits him, we were rehearsing that 3 months we start before shooting. So there was a physical rehearsal for all that to design the camera. And then sometimes even some locations were look in order to satisfy what we have planned it will be visually. So it was a lot of pre-production. Then I think the fact that the actors staged for such a long shooting, it was almost 11 months that we start to that. That winter, that autumn, that deep winter has an impact of you emotionally. We were in these locations for so long. There's no fun there too much. We have to work. And at 3 o'clock it's dark. So in a way, we were kind of in a camp, a boot camp. So there's no much to escape. We were near New York hanging out. So we were actually very concentrated to work and solve problems. And then I have to say that there was 2 hours driving to these locations. So I think the actors got into the state of mind that actually was, in a way, very similar to what really these trappers went through. You know what I mean? Isolated, cold as hell, all the physicality. So it was method acting, method director in a way. And finally, I have to say that when we shot the scenes, after being rehearsed so much, differently from a theater play that you know what to do every night, yes, we knew what to do, but to when we were shooting, actually, it was terrifying to know that it was a clock watch precision kind of thing. But to be doing 1 or 2 takes a day, because it was at the end of the day, in a way, that adrenaline was so real that every day was terrifying, that knowing that we have rehearsed so much and that was the only hour we will get to get all what we have done. So the combination of this system bring the knowledge and experience or the confidence of knowing what we are doing with precision, but with the terrifying thought that one single mistake, Chivo walking 3 steps and then, okay, pan, you have to be here, the eyes has to be there, then you plop, then you gunshot here, then the stunt has to come here. All that theatrically major thing was so terrifying that every day it was scary as hell. So if you ask me how I maintain those guys, how they is because we all were terrifying to death every day.
So it's kind of immersion through duress.
Sorry?
It's immersion through duress.
Exactly.
Talking about the film grammar. One of the things that's so unusual about this is, which by the way, when the director's asking himself, how should this story tell itself in every conceivable aspect of it, what's so unusual about this is there's an emotional core and there's this vast scale at one and the same time, and you've pulled that off brilliantly, because the film impacts as at one and the same time being as large as its world and simultaneously kind of intimate. And that's a function of all this great work that you did and Leo and Tom Hardy did. But then also how it's exactly what you're talking about, how it's blocked, how the people are, how the faces are there, and the space and the vastness is beyond them. And how could you talk about what some of those decisions were?
I think the main decision was, that's why I said that I stole a little bit from Bergman. I wanted some scenes to be, in a way, not fragmented, and I want that suddenly we are experiencing what went on in one of those characters through being with him in his point of view in a relentless way, in order to get the audience submerged in a 360 emotional kind of experience. But that implies, especially when you are shooting all the film we shot with the 14 millimeters and 16 millimeters, that was our longest length. So when you have a 14, you have that, so it's vast. So all the crew was running around behind the camera because we were shooting everything all the time. But the beauty of those lenses is that suddenly, we design and we rehearse, and Chivo, which is a master and brother, I think we spent months trying to define those shots by, as you said, how we can get to have the epic and the brutal and the big spectacular landscapes, and show those kind of David Lean kind of things, but at the same time, whack, and go to a macro of what that scene is going through, the impact of some intimate moment of the emotional impact, and then go to what he's going and understand the physicality. So it was almost like a virtual reality that we were creating in order that audiences can get into that with the feeling that we were like a little mosquito flying in that reality, So that was kind of the theory. But always the question and the most difficult thing to find was the point of view. As you know, that was the question that really, in the first battle, I was trying to get, okay, first with Leo, he goes there, blah, blah, blah. Then he kills this guy there, and then, okay, I go to L-Dog, and then we jump to L-Dog in the horse, and then, boom, then I introduce Fitzgerald, and then, okay, now Captain Henry, now all the guys. So I was trying to shift points of views in a biggest scale thing, but trying to tell the story from one point of view, which sometimes is very challenging. But the theory was that always from the macro, so to the minimal, to the major kind of thing. And it's very exciting that, because when you stretch the vision that way, it has intimacy and has, impact.
But the virtue of not cutting.
The what?
The virtue of not cutting. And the way you blocked so much of this is terrific, because you become a part of the action in a way, and then the choreography, which you started doing some of this in Birdman, and we've talked about this before you shot Birdman and after, but it has an amazing effect, and it doesn't. Let's talk about, you're talking about the vastness of nature, because nature to me, this may be completely subjective, it feels obviously it's a savage wilderness, and it's a wilderness that is not hostile to humans. It seems to be completely indifferent to humans, but in the visualization of it, this may just be what presented itself or what you selected. Nevertheless, there is a real unified design to it, because the nature seems to be compounded. It's not singular. It seems to be trees and sky and plain, or sometimes it's in a cut, from the condensation to the cloud. But it's as if to say the nature is almost, if it's talking like a character, it's saying, I'm not simple. I'm not just a condition. I'm a character, and that just somehow it gave it so much dimension. Did you decide that these components together don't belong, and these two components do belong?
Yeah, that's a very
these
interesting
kind of
question.
trees are good, these kind of trees are not.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I think that's a very interesting vision that you have, because it's true. Sometimes, yes, we design nature to be absolutely indifferent. For example, in the forest, right, when he's attacked by the bear, he's attacked, and then I try to stretch some element, like in the audio. Suddenly there's mosquitoes and birds, and the forest is indifferent to that. That bear is actually not a bad bear like the Hollywood. No, it's a guy that is having just lunch for his kids, and that's it. It's that indifference which is terrifying. But I think sometimes, as you said, yes, some locations are threatening to him. The cliff, for example, or the river, in a way, becomes a huge kind of enemy that he has to challenge. So I agree. I think the character of the landscapes were in a way always useful, not only to move ahead the story and to see how the winter and how the things, but they were interacting in a different way depending on what we need, or they can be very noble, as the scene with the Buffalo Man and them, having these snowflakes. Is a plane, is benign. I think that was important,
but it wasn't like there's a beautiful grove of trees. There's a scraggly kind of broken quality, kind of a scraggly, kind of a broken quality to a lot of the landscapes and trees. You almost felt the mud beneath the snow. And mud played a big part in this.
Well, I think that all these elements, hopefully, you have an impact in people, in the audience. I think that we have lost the connection with nature, and I think for me was very important that the impermanence of the nature, and that suddenly, I don't know, maybe it has to do with my age, that I'm more aware every time that I'm just one more organism that come from carbon and water and oxygen, and I come from this planet that is another organism, and I will be sucked very soon to become another element. And to be exposed to those elements every day and see the impermanence of these locations that I visit and choose them in summer, and then I saw how they change in the autumn, and then how they completely was transformed in the winter. I mean, to see the elements every day and be witness of that and be so close to that, I felt that we tried to capture that in the right light, and I hope that has an impact in the way we experience or observe nature, that is so available for us and so beautiful, that is telling us so many things, but we are not capable anymore. We don't have the time. We don't have even the nature with us. So I think for all of us, it has a huge impact, in the state of mind that we were interested in that moment,
The film takes place on a frontier, but the frontier feels like a state of mind. It's a condition. It's the kind of collision between the past and Glass's unknown future, or it's kind of a twilight zone in which norms are suspended, and people are tested and display who they ultimately really are inside. Were you attracted to the frontier because of the special condition it is? And could you talk a little bit about the historical basis of this period of time?
Hugh Glass is built on legend. The only fact that really is known about Hugh Glass is that he was attacked by a grizzly bear, he was abandoned, and he went almost 200 miles in the winter to get revenge. That's the only thing that is really a fact that, in a way, has been traveled to the story. And then everything that has been said, who he was, what happened to him, all that is always an interpretation. There's no. So what I like is when I start reading about the context of this period, 1823. This is 20 years before only Lewis and Clark has crossed the border. There was no West. So, I mean, there was no oil, there was no gold, there was nobody has crossed to the other side, and there was a melting pot that it was so interesting because Napoleon Bonaparte has just sold Louisiana and had a lot of territory to United States. There was a lot of French people, a lot of French Canadian. Mexico, my country, has just won the independence with Spain. So, but there still was a lot of Spanish people, a lot of Mexican people, and there was obviously hundreds of Native American tribes and a lot of English people, Canadian English, and it was a melting pot with the most important and the highest income in United States. The most important industry was the pelts, the animal pelts. That was the biggest income before the oil, before everything. So forts were established where they were broken the promises and the deals with the Indians, and that's where really start, based on a real event that two trappers went to Arikara town. They raped two girls, they killed people, and the Arikaras got them. They killed 20 something, and that's when Captain Levin will really start the official war against the Native Americans, and that was the beginning of really a brutal war. But the context, the social context, the way these men were exploited, these analphabets, young kids, runaways, were abused by these companies, just getting everything for them, paying them miserably, giving their lives, the way they use nature, they extract resources, they didn't see the human beings, the impact they have in the community. I thought it was fascinating. I read a book that is from a historian that is called John T. Coleman. It's a book that is called Here Lies Hugh Glass, and it's an historical analysis of that context. And obviously the slavery, official slavery, and the racism and the doubt with the others, the relation of the trappers with the Indian woman, that they raise these kids and they reject them or they embrace them, and there's a suffering of that to be, to have this mixed race with the kid. All those elements I included in order to speak of something that, unfortunately, it's still resonating in our society today. And I thought, wow, this is the beginning of the capitalism as we are now knowing and living. And I thought it was, as a context, was super rich, and I was very interested because of that, of the sub-themes that are floating there. I thought that it was very interesting period of time of this country that hasn't been explored a lot in cinema,
Good. Do you have dream sequence memories, spiritual states of mind? Did you preconceive those? Did they occur as you were heading into the shooting? Did they occur during the shooting? Were they?
Yeah, it was very interesting that, because actually, I will say that the anecdote of Hugh Glass can be very pedestrian if it doesn't have, for me at least, something that it's a great beat, right? The story itself, the spine of the film is very simple. And I love the fact that it's very simple, very clear. Nobody can get lost. It's a man that is abandoned and go after one guy. And the reasons he has are very, very powerful and primitive and biblical, if you want. The filial relation, the betray, the need to revenge. But when you have a good beat in music, you can really take advantage of that and get lost a little bit with some guitar solos or some piano solos or some, you can play around. So those silences, that structure that it was so clear, it allowed me to understand. I cinematically, one of the things that this project allowed me as a filmmaker was to tell the story with very few dialogue and a lot of cinematic moments, like to tell the story with images, like the real cinematic experience of filmmakers that I really love. And through those images, to try to understand Hugh Glass, who he was, through his dreams, through his memories, through his feelings, but with images that belongs not to anything else but his subconscious. So for me, visually, it was a candy dangerous because you can get a little bit too complicated and convoluted, but what images can define somebody's soul? So to add a spiritual dimension to the journey of this man was something that really excited me. And I had the idea that I had to do it. I have some ideas, but it was the long time of this shooting that allowed me to know through Leo's performance that he was doing so incredible things and was inspiring me, that I began to understand, okay, let me tell you, this is the wife, this is the thing, that church scene with the son. Suddenly I knew that I have that image, but what will happen in that church? I discovered that as I was doing it, so those things were being informed me as I was doing it, and that's a luxury that I was very privileged to have. And it was one of the most beautiful parts of the journey for me as a filmmaker.
Yeah, me too. But as much as you prepare when you start shooting a film, the more you shoot the film, the better you get at shooting the film you're shooting.
Exactly.
And so so this sounds like this is what was going on with some of that. Does anybody have questions out here?
It's about the bear attack, how I shoot that. Incredible bear train. No, the union of bear was really helpful.
Yeah.
No, I have to say that, one of the tasks of this film is to make the duty of filmmaker is to do probable the improbable. And the actual, anecdote of this real guy in the history, it's very improbable to happen that somebody survived that. So the duty was that how I can put some improbable facts that make it probable and the people can really experience that. And hopefully, most likely and hopefully not, you will never experience in your life a bear attacking a man. But now, I tried that you can have that experience through that. And if I explain you how I did it, I think I will ruin your experience and I will ruin the people experience. You know what I mean? I think it's important to keep the illusion.
I tell you, talk a little about Sakamoto, the composer. The music is stunning, and it sustains itself and just becomes an agent to take you inside what.
Oh, thank you. Well, Rich Sakamoto, I have been a huge fan since 30 years ago. Literally, the first time that I hear his soundtrack was "Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence," and since then I collect all his albums. And then in Babel, when I shoot Babel, I was living in Japan. I listen all his music every day, and 2 tracks become very important in that film. So I became friend of him. He was very generous with those 2 tracks that he basically gave me almost for free because I didn't have any more money. He gave it to me. And then I invite him to participate in this film. And, the only thing that I said to him was like that. I said, I think the silences and the sound of nature is going to be so important. I think the music, which he's a minimalistic and he's somebody who achieves so much with so little, said it's just the go in and go out and leave those spaces. Just that the music has to be like a breeze, like something that come in, come out, but without really taking over. And I think by his genius, he do that. And then he has collaborated with this German guy that is Karsten Nicolai, which is Albanotto. They have 6 albums together, which is an electronic genius. And we added to the pot. And the electronic sounds of Albanotto became something extraordinary, more contemporary, without being with the classicism of Mr. Sakamoto that is so elegant. And then I add to the pot, I went to Disney Hall. I'm very good friend of Gustavo Dudamel, and he invited me to a concert where there was some pieces of new American musicians. One is called Bryce Dresner. He's a guy from New York, and he's a contemporary artist that composed classical music, but he has a very famous rock band that is called The Nationals. So the guy has an eclectic thing, and he's a genius, kind of a very powerful contemporary, music composer. So we added in the pot. So it was a strange, delicious guacamole, which was a very, very, very difficult to get to the right thing because the 3 guys are very different. But I think, I'm very happy with how the music turned because I didn't want that the music become dictating the emotions. It was just more like a spirit.
It's completely inside, and then in a couple of pieces where there's some percussive sounds that are almost in exactly the same key as some branches breaking and
Exactly.
some of the sound design. It just all becomes an envelope. It just kind of carries you away.
I agree. And there's another American musician that is there that is one of my favorite that is called John Luther Adams. So the first piece in the attack is a piece that is called Become Ocean, which is a masterpiece. So anyway, I was very lucky to count all these talented guys.
Okay, take another question from...
Yeah, she asked if I shot in natural light and in sequence. And yes, the reason is that there was no choice for me because the actual story start in the autumn, then go to the winter, and then the winter. I couldn't do it on any other way because you cannot fake the snow or you cannot shoot, conditions like that. So I didn't have any choice. And all my films, I have shot it that way because the reason that Michael and I were talking, for me, it's important to allow the organism to start dictating me. First, I'm goth, and then I become a creature of that thing that I have created, and I have to surrender and understand that thing that it start talking to me during. And that's a luxury. That's an investment, but I think it's worth it. And the other thing is the natural light. Again, there was no choice because you cannot light a forest. I mean, there's no artificial light that it will be horrible. And it's unidimensional compared to the complexity of the light at the dusk. So everything was designed to rehearse and then to have 1 hour, 1.5 hours maximum every day to achieve that day. And but at that time of the day, even a shitty location looks gorgeous because every plant, every drop of water, everything just shine and reveals itself with a beauty. And I think the complexity of the light and what she was achieved here is marvelous, I think. So we were lucky,
There was just a technical question. There was something about the you talked about the lenses being a 40 and a 60, but what were they? What kind of lenses were they?
They were prime masters, and they
Prime,
were 14 millimeters. Sometimes we shot it in 10, 12. They were prime masters, yes. And we shot with the ARRI, and then we shot 40% of the film is shot with a camera, thanks to the studio support and trust and Mary Parent, which is around here. They trust us, Chivo and I, but there was a new ARRI 65 millimeters coming out that there was no, it hasn't been tested. There was no insurance for us, but we said, come on, let's do it. And we shot 40% of that with an on-test camera, which is brutally beautiful. It's small and incredible. And the digital cameras gave us... I wanted to shoot this film originally in 65 in film, but I couldn't because at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we have 2.8. There was no exposure. So the digital cameras in this time allow us to shoot the way we wanted with 1 hour more of light, So it was great.
Another question.
You mean glass? Yeah. So, I mean, my intention, hopefully, I would like to know who got that. He said, save your boy and blink, is what Fitzgerald say. They're going to come, they're going to kill us. You save your boy and blink. And then he said, you just have to blink. And for me, the idea was that glass, at least Leo's performance for me is very clear, and I hope that people got that. Is important because he don't blink. He closed his eyes deliberately, saying, "Kill me. I'm gonna give my life for my kids." And in a way, Fitzgerald, he has a point, So he's sacrificing his life that is already basically gone, and he knows that if he stay longer, his boy will be killed. So he gave his life, but happened to be that then, the boy see that and everything turns differently from planet. But yes, there was a deal made that went wrong. So my question for you, did you got that? So you got that he do this blinking? I'm glad. I'm so relieved. My God.
There's an extraordinary moment when he closes his son's eyes and you hear him breathing, but you've cut to the clouds, but you sustain the sound of glass breathing. It's really fantastic. You did a lot of rewriting on this, particularly as it relates to the ending, how the whole thing resolved. Do you want to talk about you may not want to. You want to talk about some of the choices you had, or some of the different ways that the story resolved itself.
Well, I think Mark Smith did the first draft, and it was the spine of the story there. When I took it, I just asked him that I would like to just add something that would become personal. So we collaborate, and I spent, it was a good 3 years of really rewriting things and learning a little bit of all the whole things. And I think for me it was very important to understand and to capture without any affectation. Obviously, we added the father and son relation, the fact that he was, have race, and the complexity of all that. But one thing that was very important was the elk dog, the Aricaras character, and obviously the Buffalo Man too, as a master that he found in his life who healed him spiritually, and then the horse healing him physically, and all those anecdotes, but that relation with nature. But for me, I think Western films has for me a vicious kind of bipolar reaction trying to portray Indians, or they are always demonized as the bad guys, or they are sanctify, like, oh, they are so pure and so perfect and we destroy them. And I don't think neither of that is true. In my country, there's 10% of the population is indigenous, and they are just exactly as us. So they are complex, they are contradictory, they are as us. I mean, we are not bad or good. We are a very we are a prism of realities. And I try, in order for them to be represented humanly and not just like a notion of those guys, it was to Elk Dog being a father looking for his daughter, as this guy was almost like a mother protecting his cub, and both had a very personal, human, intimate reason to be fighting and to be looking a very noble one. And that was something that I think for me was crucial to understand the encounter at the end and how things happen in life, where the girl, that he saved her and then she saved him without knowing, he didn't know. All those things, in a way, the way they were traced, they were planted since we started, but they were getting better and better every time that I was understanding things. And then obviously the ending of the film of Leo, turning to the camera, I think for me, there was a moment that I didn't know exactly how. I have a couple of ideas of how to end the film, but it was very close to the end. Once we were in Ushuaia and I was by myself in the middle of nowhere and just like terrified to say, now is the ending. And I got that, which then I didn't understood how this could possibly end without that. And it's a risky kind of decision, but I couldn't understand any other way. But that came later, until that. So anyway.
Great. This gentleman here.
The question is how I communicate with the actors, the fact to tell the story without words. I think most of the non-dialogue moments are carried by Leo in a way. Most of them, not all, but most of them. And I think, again, I have a lot of time with Leo to rehearse and to talk about what we want to achieve. And working with Leo has been one of the greatest kind of gift that I have had, because you have to understand that to convey and to express all those emotions that he does, he just have two eyes and his body language dragging himself, right? That's very difficult to really understand what's going on in somebody's mind and what he's feeling. And I think without that talent that he has, it would be impossible. But then obviously my job was to help to communicate that, to help to get that with the language of the camera and where the camera is positioned to get that the best and most precise. I think every shot is designed to communicate something. And what I'm saying that is more cinematical is, I think, the job of a director, when there's no words available to express ideas or feelings or situations or plots or things like that, when you lack of that tool narratively, you have to really get to the bottom with images. I mean, with lead, and that's a beautiful essential exercise for filmmakers. Like if you are, you cannot talk how you express yourself. And that's what Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin did. It was the exercise of every day. That was, they were so great filmmakers. And that exercise really excites me. And how I communicate, I think always what I do is, I try to be helpful in a way that it's to be very clear in what's the objective of that scene, what the character wants in that moment. So every scene has an objective. And then you can achieve that objective by different action verbs. So I can bring some action verbs as an ideas, but then the actor can propose another ones. And then the execution is obviously about them. But my job is to bring them the clear objective, some ideas of the action verb that they can really, there's no interpretation, and that the camera really, in a way tell from the right point of view of getting that objective. So it's kind of simple in that sense.
I think in Alejandro's answer to this last question and his answer to the question before, you get it. You could hear in his articulation and his language, the kind of the beating heart of a real auteur and a real poet. And this is what we've seen here tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.